But let's get started. Hello and welcome to the ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Network. I'm Gregor Sprague, and joining me is Corey Scott. And before we get started, just let you know that you could find all of these all this stuff on the show, including show notes and subscription links over at ElseNerds.com. And for all the other Galactic Network programs, you can go to gncasts.com. And on ElseNerds, we will swear. We tend to swear and shoot our mouths off without thinking. So we will spoil things, and of course, we will swear. You have been warned. Corey,
I have
how
a
you
feeling
doing?
that some of the episodes are just me just screaming one long swear word.
Yeah, if it were to air on Comedy Central, just be.
I mean,
Like
if
the
we're
whole
going on the
time.
fact of like we do this when we're not thinking, I'm never thinking when I'm on the air.
Same here.
I
I
think my
actually
heart
thought
just
about it.
stops.
Yeah, I thought about it the other day, and I'm like, I swear a lot on that show. I don't really swear anywhere else. No, except church. No, I'm joking. I don't swear at church.
Fucking
Swear all the
Jesus was
time there.
balls out, right? What? Yeah.
But no, yeah. So Corey, how you doing, sir? How's your week been?
I don't have a prepared statement. I want you to know that I had very little to do with the hack of the now president of France. But if you received an invitation from me for Google Docs, go ahead and click it.
God, I love those things. So that's why we were late. Is you were finishing up the code on your new Google
I
Doc,
was just
right?
sending out mass emails left and right.
Yeah. You could okay. So let's jump right into the news. And the first bit of news is that Edge of Tomorrow 2 is in development and has a title. I don't know why I put has a show title because it has a name. And actually, I don't know if you realize this or if the viewers or listeners of the show realize this. Edge of Tomorrow, just in the naming department, has a very interesting story. It was originally going to be called, what is it? Live and Let Kill, based off of the comic book that this is sourced from. Or no, sorry, All You Need Is Kill, which is same from the source material, same from the comic book, and then they eventually settled on Edge of Tomorrow for the movie theaters, but they're thinking that the title was what didn't draw people into the movie.
They're both kind of generic James Bondish sounding titles, which is not a bad thing at all. If you could just get paid to come up with James Bond movie titles, which are usually based off of the Fleming novels, but that's not a bad way to make cash. It's like coming up with your favorite porn names, based off of the street that you lived on, and I don't know, your first pet's name, which is mine is Danky McBottomstuffins. But what I do think is what happened is not so much that they changed the name because they thought the name hurt it. I think it was that they didn't want people to recognize that it was the same movie that tanked at the box office, because it undersold in theaters, but it was actually a pretty damn good movie when all was said and done.
Yeah. And so and then eventually when it came out on Blu-ray and on video on demand, it was titled Live, Die, Repeat.
Which does seem to play off of what the story is about a little bit better than both the other titles.
Yeah. It's not okay, I shouldn't say that it is titled. It's the box art is in big, like it's a movie poster. Live, die, repeat. Like boom, 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 right below it. So the sequel to the movie is Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat. And which would be it's a good title. I like that. I like the two because yes, All You Need Is Kill and then Edge of Tomorrow do sound a little
they just don't
little
describe
generic.
They just don't describe the film in any significant way. And if you asked me after seeing this movie and enjoying this movie what the title of it was, or what the original title of it was, I wouldn't be able to come up with it. It's just so generic.
Yeah, but the interesting part is that, and this is a rarity where we had to narrow it down from one article about a guy. But Doug Liman, the director of the first movie, is on or was doing an interview about the movie The Wall, where he talked about a whole bunch of other things, like leaving the Gambit movie, leave his status for the new Justice League Dark movie for the DC expanded universe. And then they got talking about this, and he is excited about this because of the fact that it looks like Tom Cruise is going to be coming back, or is ready to do it. Emily Blunt is ready as well. It's just a matter of when.
Right? How do they get
Like
them together? Because Cruise is usually pretty busy. He's got several different franchises that he's working on. Although I don't know if we're going to get another Jack Reacher after the second one did not do well, and honestly wasn't nearly as good as the first one. It felt like a TV movie, and he's got the Mummy film coming out, the Universal films that may cross over with the Universal monsters. Emily Blunt is doing Mary Poppins Returns right now. So there's plenty of things coming up from both of them.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Mission Impossible, which is still Cruise's, I think, most successful franchise at this point. I would like to see this one get to that point. I would certainly like to see the third one live, die, repeat, and a finishing rinse, because that's what you do. It's just... third movie is we've got curlers in our hair. How long until this perm sets? I hope that it all comes together but I also feel like this movie doesn't necessarily need a sequel. It was a really well done film that told a great story that had that kind of Groundhog's Day-esque effect in it. Not to give too much away about the film, although we spoil. That seeing a sequel, it's like picture a sequel of a Groundhog's Day movie where everything keeps repeating, and it's already like, I can't believe that I've enjoyed this film so many times when it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again. It's really based on how entertaining the cast is. What do they bring us for the next one, and then what do they bring us for the one after that? It's a little... You could just let it be great, but I think they're trying to prove something. I feel like they're trying to do a second one just because the first one didn't do well in the theater, but then it did much better on video on demand and Blu-ray. And I'm not sure if that's exactly, like, I don't know.
So I'm gonna throw the name of the fourth movie in the in the Edge of Tomorrow series, and this is coming from Carrie Rudins, who's in our chat. Live, die, repeat, and happy ending.
Me love you long time. It's not going to get any better than that. I mean, obviously that was a private film just from Tom to John Travolta, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen Edge of Tomorrow. It was one that caught my eye, caught my curiosity, but never was enough to be, okay, I'm going in, I'm gonna dive into this movie, sort of watch it or whatever.
And I think I only really watched it because I was seeing all of the hype post fact. I was seeing people who are like, I don't know why this movie didn't do very well. It was so good. And then I'd be like, well, did you go see it in the theater? Oh, no. Well, then you're part of the fucking problem, Brad.
You're the problem.
I don't know if Brad actually saw it in the theater or not, but I remember he was one of the people who ranted about it so much that I felt like I should watch it. And even though I'm on Galactic Networks, I'm not the biggest sci-fi guy in the world, but this is a fun movie that I think does everything right. I think Tom Cruise, while not the be-all, end-all star to me, is infinitely entertaining, if nothing else, especially in the right role. He can be a lot of fun. He's got a great amount of charm. I mean, that's why he is where he is, or where he has been where he's been. Emily Blunt is tremendous and is so badass in this. And I think this is another reason why people were really hoping that she was going to land the Captain Marvel role or any of the Marvel or DC superhero roles. Because she, after you see this, you feel like she's kind of fucking made for it. It hits all the right notes, I think, for what it did. The only thing is that people didn't pay to go see it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to be changed with a sequel. I don't know that if it failed in the box office the first time, even if people have warmed to it after the fact, I don't know if that means that they're suddenly going to go and see it again, or they're just going to say, well, the last time I had a great experience watching it at home, and I can do that again. All the entertainment, no pants.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Let's just, instead of repeating this story, let's move on to the next one.
Oh, I thought we were just going to do this one over again.
The next one is Game of Thrones spin-offs are in the works at HBO. I am of the initial reaction from this. I am of two minds. One is no duh. The other one is oh shit. The no duh because, well, yeah, duh. Of course it would, because it's HBO. Let's milk this fucking cash cow. And then you have, but I mean, the four writers that are attached right now are Max Borstein, who wrote Kong Skull Island, Jane Goldman, who wrote Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which the trailer looks so good. Brian Helgeland, who wrote Legend, and Carly Ray, who wrote and not
Call
Jepsen.
Me
No, no, I knew you were gonna do it. Wrote Mad Men and The Leftovers, and Goldman and Ray will each be working individually with novelist and Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin.
So 4 more goddamn things to get in the way of him writing the fucking book's endings.
Yeah, it's I
don't read books.
It's one of those, like, I mean, I've heard people talk about this before, and it does make sense, to build this, because we wouldn't have Frasier without Cheers, we wouldn't have Joey without Friends. Bad example. We wouldn't
right, exactly. Joni Loves Chachi without Happy Days.
Or Mork and Mindy. Or Laverne and Shirley.
We're trying to figure this out over lunch. If there was as many spin-offs of Happy Days as there turns out they're trying to do for this. Now, I remembered Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, Joni Loves Chachi, and then there was the animated series of Happy Days, which I don't know if that necessarily counts, but that would be 4.
Yeah.
I'm still with Game of Thrones because I want to see it get to the end. And I think Game of Thrones is a phenomenon in and of itself. It is a well-written, incredibly well-acted, well-crafted show. And I am still enjoying it despite certain points where I feel like it may be a little much, and it's certainly gone long. But it's kind of like trying to expand on what is a great thing and then having diminishing returns with the spin-offs. Like the Fear the Walking Dead show did not enhance or improve my experience with The Walking Dead. I feel like it just kind of made me feel even more like I've had enough of The Walking Dead. Yep. And if they plan these shows after the series is done, that may be a little bit better. But they tried to introduce it in the last season or two. Any of these spinoffs, I think it might just be like I've had too much of this.
Mm-hmm.
I am overflowing with the bullshit that is Daenerys and her dragons and everybody else. Jon Snow knows nothing. I think Jon Snow knows not to spin off 4 fucking shows from this one. You don't milk the golden calf until it's bone dry.
You actually brought up what I was going to bring up with Fear the Walking Dead, because I felt like Fear brought nothing to the whole Walking Dead universe. Now, granted, did I watch all the pilot? I think I watched all the pilot and then a little bit of the second episode, and I was like F this, I'm gone. Sort of thing. And I agree with you. And it does say that they're who was it? A spokesperson said, "We'll take as much or as little time as the writers need, and as with all our development, we will evaluate what we have when the scripts are in." So it doesn't sound like, oh, let's hurry up and get all these shows like up to script so we can get them in there. Um, it's
It's 4
and
different tries to make a spinoff.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like let's see, because I mean, I could see a Lord of the Rings TV show, or even another movie, because there's enough material from the extended universe there in J.R.R. Tolkien's world that he created
That
to
Shadow
make
of
it.
Mordor video game that
Yeah,
they did a few years ago.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
exactly. There's this whole world and these creatures and things that you feel like you would want to be a part of, that you'd want to interact with. It's a little different because it's a video game, but I completely agree.
yeah,
But you don't hear people talk about the books outside of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, like the other series that he did, at nearly as much as you do those.
yeah,
And I feel like I thought it would be very interesting. One of the coolest parts of Game of Thrones to me so far has been the girl has no name, assassins people, the faceless, that like were training Arya, and that whole bit was really cool. And I felt like we didn't go deep enough into it for what I would have liked. But do I want to see that developed without Arya Stark, for instance?
and yeah, and I mean the point I was getting at with it is, because like there's a lot of stuff with Lord of the Rings. Um, uh, J.K. Rowling is constantly doing stuff for expanding the Harry Potter universe. There's what fucking thousands of books, thousands of comic books that are considered no longer canon in Star Wars.
Right. And
So
that's
and so it's like we have material for Game of Thrones. Like there's I think there was a history book that someone wrote that George R. R. Martin's like, I approve, and that you could pull stuff from.
yeah, but when you're talking about the amount of dedication to watch just the series itself, my wife the other day was like, we need to buy Game of Thrones so that I can rewatch the series again and kind of like see where everything started all over. And I'm like, we don't have to buy shit. She's like, well, why not? I said, because it's on HBO. We subscribe to HBO, so you can watch whatever the fuck HBO has, their own shows specifically. You can watch all that. She's like, I can watch it now. I'm like, yeah, god damn it. But the whole idea of going through this all over again is just so daunting to me.
Yeah.
And even just like, if someone, like, after I was halfway through Lost, and I'm feeling like Lost has stumbled a little bit for one, but just in general, like, I'm in the middle of Lost and then other shows are coming out and they're being like touted as the next Lost. I don't want another fucking Lost.
Mm-hmm.
I am spent with my Lost fixation. I'm already being used up by the show itself, and once the show is done, I need a fucking break from that shit. I don't need the next anything. I need something new to grab my attention. I am a little fickle. I may be a little bit like fucking something shiny over there, distract me. I'm okay with that, but more of the same. If you've already gone through and you feel that final like weight off your chest of like, oh, okay, now I finally know how it ends. I finally know who gets the throne. I know who lives, and it ain't gonna be a lot of people. I'm pretty sure of that. You need that moment of breathing, back, and to say, and here's our next series with more of this world. It's like, no. I need a refractory period, man. You need to step off, okay, and let mama get a rest. All right, that's how I'm talking.
Yeah, I mean, it's
but I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong.
Yeah.
There's certainly enough things out there that showed that success can happen. But by the time they got to their third CSI, we knew they fucked up CSI.
Yeah.
By the time they go past two NCISs, they've already pushed their fucking limits. And Criminal Intent can't get a spinoff to work. You really need to be careful.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're going to make less money from it, because they've already made all the money that Game of Thrones is making. So they put out a little bit more, and maybe it doesn't have the success that the previous one did. But if it's any kind of success, that's just extra. That's just gravy.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's I think if the stories are good, then okay, yeah, sure. But I do agree with you the whole, refractory period thing, because where and you just take a drink, but take another drink, because I'm gonna mention the newsroom, and like how I'm like, okay, I really feel like they could do another season of the newsroom with the shit that's been going on now, in the false news and all that stuff.
Oh, it
But
would be. It's ripe for that. And the newsroom was so short, and we felt kind of like it ended too soon, anyways. Now that they're bringing back Deadwood on HBO. They're bringing back Twin Peaks, like the return of these things, because they're beloved and because we felt like we didn't get all we needed out of it. When they bring back X-Files, maybe we did get all we needed out of X-Files, but it's still kind of cool to see it come back after a period of time. I get that. I totally appreciate that sort of thing. I just so much of Game of Thrones is the love of the characters, is the love of the actors. If it's not going to have Peter Dinklage, I'm not sure how well it's going to do. If it doesn't have Jon Snow and Arya and Daenerys and these characters, I don't know how well it's going to do, because we already know that we've lost characters that we liked, but we haven't had that I love this character too often. Every once in a while, there's one that you feel like, oh, this could be my one true. Oh, nope, dead. Oh god, his face just crushed under by the fucking mountain. Shit. If, on the other hand, they do a cartoon about the direwolves called All Direwolves Go to Heaven, I'm fucking into that.
but like I was saying with the newsroom thing, like it took a year before, like a year or two before I rewatched it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like when I watched it, week to week, I was like, okay, yes, this is cool, I'm enjoying the show. But you're right, it did take that refractory period before I'm like, all right, what's next? What's Aaron Sorkin working on? Oh, he's working on a Steve Jobs movie. Oh, I think The Social Network was right around this time too, or before this. It's like, all right, okay, go to the next thing and all that. But that was the point I was trying to make. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I am a Game of Thrones fan, but I'm also a Walking Dead fan, and we hit it. Fear the Walking Dead does not interest me at all. I mean,
yeah.
I had more interest out of the 15-second a week shorts that they do with like Passages and Flight 92 and
the online stuff.
The online stuff that they then throw in to the commercial breaks. Like I have more, I like that more than I like anything else with Fear the Walking Dead. And it's like, all right, yeah, let's, like, maybe that's your market for Fear. But
the famous quote is always leave them wanting more. And I feel like when you forget to do that, the audience eventually turns on you. You have to know how long something is going to be good and do just to that point, or maybe even just under it, because then people will look at you on long term with a greater appreciation than if you just overstayed your welcome.
It's I'm going to emphasize that same thing with Graham Linehan, the guy who created The IT Crowd, one of my favorite British comedies of all time, full stop, period. He talked about they had done 4 seasons, and there were in talks, there was talks of them doing a 5th, and he said, this next thing is gonna be the last thing we do, and it ended up being, the 90-minute special. But because he didn't want to run into the zombie TV show thing, which is like other comedies that were on at that time. sort of fell into that track. The
Yep.
Simpsons has fallen into that track numerous times. It's been a zombie show for, 10 years, I'd say.
Really? I mean, if only I could find a podcast that discusses the post-classic episodes of The Simpsons to rate the worst one. Where could I find that? Worst episode ever, wepodcast.com.
Hey, look at that. I was like, wait, what is he doing? What is he doing? He's going rogue. But no, so I mean, I don't know. Take that for real. Our final news story for the night before we get into else views and else words is there. We got this, like Corey brought this up, like not like a half hour ago. This is so like breaking news. It's almost like we're actual reporters.
Tasty fresh.
Yes. So fresh.
Finally, we got something ahead of you, current geek.
Yay, thank you. But no, it's the Hellboy. There's a Hellboy reboot in the works with Stranger Things and Newsroom star David Harbour. This is coming to us from the Hollywood Reporter and was confirmed on Mike Mignola's Facebook account, which neither one of us could look at because Facebook wants.
I was able to get back on finally, and I saw and that's what allowed me to say go ahead with the story, is because Mike, being the creator of Hellboy, I'm like, okay, if he says it's real, then it's real.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who do not know, Hellboy started out in 1993 as an indie comic that told, or indie comic hit, I believe started at Dark Horse, right? It was always been at Dark Horse. Yeah. And it was told this story of a demon being raised by a professor that works to fight the supernatural evildoers for an organization called the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. It later went on to become a movie that was released by Sony in 2004, directed and co-written by Guillermo del Toro. And the movie made about $60 million domestically, and then 40 million internationally. And then this was the era before, or there's something in here, and it was budgeted for 66 million. And then they made the second one through Universal, with the same team, with Ron Perlman being the one who was playing Hellboy. And in the article talks about how its box office mojo was cut short when The Dark Knight opened 6 days after it. So yeah. And so here's
well, let's first of all, I don't want to spill my tea on me because I gotta get through this whole show, but I would like to figuratively, I'll use my empty Jones soda bottle with my character on it, pour one out for Del Toro, who has gotten 2 stories where someone else has taken over the shit that he's been working on for a long time. So Doug Liman, we mentioned earlier, is going to be doing the Justice League Dark movie. Del Toro was working on that for a long development hell time. And the Hellboy series that he's been pushing as hard as he could to get that 3rd one made for years. And he and Ron Perlman have both been like, yeah, it's going to happen. Oh, no, it's not going to happen now. Okay, we're going to try to get it to happen again. And it still hasn't happened. To just get fucking dicked by, like, it was just about a month or 2 ago that we got the official, no, it's really not going to happen anymore. And now a whole different team is coming in to do Hellboy. I'm sure in a much less expensive way. And I'm certainly glad to see a Hellboy movie getting made. And I'm definitely happy for Mike, who is an incredible creator. And I love seeing the love of his character keep paying off for him. And I certainly have nothing against David Harbour at all, who will probably do a very good job. It's such a bummer because the first 2 Hellboy movies, especially the second one, are really, really good.
Yeah,
they're really good. That second movie is so exactly what I think most fans of the character and of the comics want to see in a Hellboy film. And they play off the imagination of Del Toro so much. Perlman's charisma He just fucking oozes it as the character. He knows how to play this character. It when we heard Hellboy and his voice started coming out of that, it just made total sense. And they did the couple animated films as well with the cast. It was so great to see all this happen. It is kind of crushing to lose that. Flip side is, but we are getting another Hellboy movie.
Yeah, so let me give you some of the details before I sort of pick apart at what Beat said here in our producer's chat. Neil Marsh, the horror director who broke out with The Descent and won raves for his work on Game of Thrones, is in talks to direct the project, which has a working title of Hellboy: Rise of the Blood Queen, and has a script by Andrew Cosby, Christopher Golden, and Hellboy creator himself, Mike Mignola.
Yeah, and Christopher Golden has written a lot of Hellboy stuff, and written with Mike. I think he's done novelizations of Hellboy as well.
So I'm going to pick apart what Beat just said here. That Hellboy 2 was one of the rare cases of a sequel being at least as good as the first one, if not better, and that he loved it. I agree with that sentence, but rare case, a lot of movies, the sequel is better than the first.
There are the big examples where that's true, and then there are the examples where that's really not the case. Most people would argue Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is one of the lowball Nightmare on Elm Streets. I like it. I don't have a problem with the gay undertones, but a lot of people argue that one, it's Freddy when he's not being funny. He's still, it's super violent, scary shit. And two, it was like the next film in a movie that wasn't necessarily going to be a series. For every Empire Strikes Back, there is plenty of other films where the sequels just kind of didn't help.
So here's I think I can name like 5, maybe more. Dark Knight, Spider-Man 2, the original Spider-Man 2.
Original Spider-Man 2, absolutely the best of that trilogy.
Guardians 2. I will put Guardians 2 on there. It is better than Guardians. And I know you haven't seen it, so I won't do that. Empire Strikes Back, as Evan pointed out.
Civil War. Not Civil War. Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier. Yep. Winter Soldier. I can throw that in there.
But Avengers 2 versus Avengers 1?
No. Well,
Iron Man 2 versus Iron Man 1? Thor 2, Thor 1 are kind of the same. You can see that it's not always easy to recapture that magic.
Yeah, it does fall apart when you look at it in that way. And I do say, but it's like to say it is a rare case. I don't think it's a rare case. I think a lot of, especially trilogies, like
Sister Act 2, another Stakeout. I mean, there's been a lot of cases where movies have had sequels and they should not have had sequels, and Legally Blonde 2. There's a lot of cases. I think we take those movies out of our vocabulary because why the fuck am I going to bring up those films? They're all shit. But they were movies that were successful enough in the first one to have a sequel, and then they said, but the sequel, fuck it all, just cut the check and run to fucking the Bahamas. That's all you got to do. I think Beats more right on this than what you are saying.
But still, it's like to say that I was like, wait a minute, but there are all these movies.
Absolutely, and those are the ones that we think of as they are the exception to the rule. They are more successful because they go against the grain of how often that is the case.
Yeah. All right. Whatever. Consider this a young man's crying foul of what the older folks are saying here. I just called you guys old. But so, I mean, I'm honestly excited about this because
when I kick your ass later, you'll have to let me know if you enjoy me kicking your ass the first time as much or better than me kicking your ass the second time.
I would have to say I probably would enjoy the sequel.
Yeah, you will.
Um, but no, so I mean, all in all, I like the movie. See, this is a rare thing where, as a comic book fan, and again, I know, so I hear it right now, Corey. So you don't gotta say it, but I haven't read much Hellboy,
No,
and
and
it's
I can understand that. I mean, one, you like you mentioned, it started out in '93. Two, Hellboy doesn't have a the storylines kind of jump around a little bit. And
yeah,
at one point, Hellboy himself kind of disappeared, and so you were getting the BPRD books, you were getting the Amazing Screwtop Head, you were getting a lot of other characters in that universe who were having series because Mike has his hand so heavily in all of them, and it's hard for Mike to do all that stuff. So he started picking teams to tell stories that he was still a part of, but wasn't fully in charge of doing. And especially as he developed things, a relationship with Hollywood, and he worked on things like the Atlantis Disney movie. So yeah, it makes sense because of how when it started. How were you? How old were you in '93?
4.
Right. Probably not going to. There was no picture book for you of little Hellboy
Yeah,
fights crime in recess. It's just I get that, but when you have all the free time in the world, uh, it's definitely worth reading.
yeah.
Some
No,
really good stuff.
definitely. And I think that's a lot of the part that I wish would happen is that there would be more Hellboy stuff. Because the last one, and I seem to have missed it, but the last one that was out at Dark Horse, I believe, was Hellboy in Hell. And it's like where it's just Hellboy, not Ape Sapien, not the BPRD, not this ancillary character, but Hellboy himself. Let's and all that. Now, Beat's asking another good question of who do you accept. Fuck you, Beat. Come on, honestly, just fuck you. Who do you accept as a successor to the Rock or to Ron Perlman? And he said, please don't be the Rock. Um, I
As
think
a
the
successor, in
honestly I
what
think the Rock is
regard?
too big. Yeah, I think the Rock is too big in a physical sense to be Hellboy.
I'm. Do you, are you asking me not in Hellboy sense, but in like Ron Perlman's legacy of the kind of actor and the kind of character actor and stuff that he is, the person that you kind of root for, even though he plays a bad guy, that he's done so many different parts where for the first several years, it was almost like you never recognized him in things because he was playing behind so much makeup, like the Beauty and the Beast series on CBS or any other number of things.
He's just saying no, just taking over the role. And
Just taking over the role of Hellboy. I can't say that. I can't say who's going to be good at it. I think David Harbour could be a very good choice, but he's got fucking big shoes to fill in this.
Yeah. But at the same time, wasn't that said of anyone who's played Batman?
Not after Clooney.
And yeah, but I mean, like, or James Bond, or you could name any of these of these big popular characters,
You got
and
to
it's
look
always
for your
like,
palate cleansers. So with
yeah,
James Bond, it's like, okay, yeah, here's some George Lazenby to make the next guy who comes across palatable. Okay, so you've been dealing with Roger Moore for the last few years. We're gonna give you a couple with Timothy, what's his fuck, and then we'll bam, then we give you Pierce Brosnan. It's just it sort of depends. Everybody's gonna have their favorites, but it's kind of like the young, not young Indiana Jones, although I maybe a little bit that, but I get that a little bit more. But the young Han Solo,
yeah,
and young Lando and everything. I love me some fucking Donald Glover, and I am super excited that Donald Glover got picked to play young Lando. But in my lifetime, did I ever actually need a young Lando, a young Han Solo that wasn't the original people? No. I do not need a young Han Solo movie because it's not Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford is Han Solo to me. He always has been. Nobody else needed to play that role. That's a money grab. I don't hate it, but I don't fucking need it either. I wasn't asking for it. There's, like we said, there's so much Star Wars universe to explore. You can do that. So it feels a little shitty to me. I know I know Harrison doesn't give a fuck, but I don't think that was necessary.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna do it, then I don't know anything about the guy who's playing Han, but the guy they picked to play Lando, fucking aces. Sure, I totally get that. But he's going to spend the entire movie, at any time he's ever playing this character, being compared to Billy D. Williams. You know, and he could even be a far superior version, but he's still going to be compared, fairly or not, to Billy D because Billy D was Lando.
Yeah. And I honestly think David Harbour is going to be a good, choice to if they can't do Ron Perlman, then he'll be a good choice. And all that. And if I can't pick The Rock, I wasn't gonna pick The Rock anyways. I'm like, no, like I said, he's too big. He's too fucking massive to be Hellboy. I mean, the right hand of doom would just be a boulder. You know.
But there is something to the big guy who can be self-defacing, who can accept the fact that he's not always going to win. You know, it's like I'm huge and I'm a badass, and there were so many things where it's like, with a huge badass also never fails.
Yeah.
You want to see someone who can handle the failure. You want to see someone who can play down on his luck. And The Rock has done very well by being self-defacing at points where it needs to be. Not all the time, but there's certainly points where he can do that. And I don't have a problem in that regard to him in the comparison, but he's not who I would choose.
Yeah.
And I think another part of it is that Ron Perlman has been able to hide behind makeup. Not saying like he's not putting himself out there, but I'm saying is you can see him in so many different things. And for a long time, not even registered that it was him.
Yeah, like before Hellboy, and I remember because I have the DVD and that's what they talked about. He was in a live action Beauty and the Beast where he played the Beast.
Right. Yeah.
And all that.
And things like The Name of the Rose, where I think he speaks Latin the whole time, or maybe French or something. It's just so many different things that I've seen him in where it's like when Hellboy happened, yes, he was dressed up as Hellboy. They did fantastic prosthetics and everything, and they made him look like the character straight out of the comic. But I also felt like it was the first time I knew who Ron Perlman was.
Yeah.
You know, on screen. And I really love that about him. And we've seen him kind of get to break out after that even more, in roles like one of the villains in Blade 2, or in what was the one with the giant Pacific Rim? I think he was in that. Just like anytime you see Ron Perlman, you're like, fucking Ron Perlman. It's like seeing Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell probably wouldn't have been a bad Hellboy.
Yeah. What about John Hamm?
John Hamm, I think, could do it.
Yeah. I'm assuming it's Growly Bear and Carrie Rootens in our chat are the same person, I think.
No, Growly Bear is different.
Oh, okay. So Carrie is pointed out and all that. But I mean, I don't know, because I'm with this. I'm a little bit more horrible at making casting choices with this. Like, because I was thinking, well, what about the Selma Blair character? Then I'm like, well, no, you can get Aubrey Plaza, and I'm like, all right, fuck it, I don't know. But yeah, so I'm interested to see where this goes. It is cool to see that Mike Mignola is involved because I mean, I think those movies tend to look the best, or shows look the best when the creator is involved.
Yeah, as opposed to people who say, well, what I'd really like to do is see Hellboy break Abe Sapien's neck. You know, just throwing it out there. You know, just saying, maybe at some point we have the professor, but we don't actually call him the professor, and then we just have him get shot randomly because he's hanging out in the fucking Middle East somewhere. Yeah, just saying, it kind of works a little bit if you're a comic not fan.
Yeah. But no, so I think that's going to do it for the news, and we will be right back.
Sorry, Growly Bear. I was confused because I saw two different things. I'm like, well, that's weird.
Yeah. Like that's why I was hesitant in saying it, but then I'm like, wait, no, okay, so it is. So basically, what's happening is Growly Bear is fudging our numbers by giving us an extra, giving us an extra person.
I'm just excited to see him and Brandon here. It's always nice
Yeah,
to have.
no, it's cool, and I've got this whole setup where I could see their chat, even though it's like 30 seconds behind us. But anyways, we should probably get on to the next section.
Yeah.
And we are back, and it is time for the Else Views. This is the part of the show where I bring you a couple of things because Corey didn't bring anything for it. But where we talk about the TV shows.
Brought my balls you can eat.
No, I've had enough nuts today. But I have a couple TV shows that I'm going to talk about here. The first one is a TV show that I love but also hate at the same time. Not like hate like it's horrible, but hate in this is something that they had on the show before, and then they took it away, and now they gave it to a white guy. And that the show is called Problematic with Moshe Kasher, and I'm comparing it because it seems a lot like the discussion topics that they had on the Nightly Show with Larry Wilmore, and it was one of those like, and like they're tackling a lot of the same, a lot of the same issues they've had 3 episodes, and it's one of those shows where they're tackling these things. Like the first one was cultural appropriation, where they had on Kenya Barris, the creator of Blackish on ABC, and they were talking about, Kendall Jenner, Kylie Jenner, whoever cares, how she was, she's wearing dreads and what the dreads mean, dreadlocks and what they mean and all that stuff. And how do we, surprisingly, they didn't hit anything about college. I don't think they really hit anything about like with college people, like the kids do, like obviously not doing blackface because that is wrong, but where they where they are talking about this, about like taking people's culture, like we get the white rapper and
Cultural
stuff like
appropriation.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen it, Corey?
No, it's one of those things that I would like to see. It doesn't remind me as much from what I've seen of the commercials, and I think I skipped past it at one point because it was already in the middle of an episode. It doesn't remind me as much of the Nightly Show as it reminds me of several shows that they've tried with a similar format, but about different subjects. It kind of like the Not Safe with Nikki Glazer. And
except for Not Safe is just strictly sex stuff.
Right. That was her thing, but and there was the other one, the guy who used to date Amy Schumer, Jordan something, I don't remember it, but he had a talk show. It seems like they have a comedian who's done a few things, like gets known from being on their roasts or being a guest on At Midnight, and they're like, okay, let's give them a pilot and give them a show where they can talk to people. It's done on the cheap, and it's built around their comedy and their style, and then they just go ahead and they follow through with it. It's harder to come up with a sketch show because you have to have talented people like Dave Chappelle or Key and Peele to make that work. But the shows where it's like, I'm a comedian, I've got comedian friends, and we all sit around and shoot the shit, and we talk about whatever my subject matter is that week. And sometimes we have porn actors act out the stuff. That seems like a very Comedy Central thing to do. It's like they're just going to keep trying to until they can capture lightning again.
And I would even say, and I am going to include the UK version of Comedy Central because they have a show over there that I think is a fun show called The Chris Ramsey Show that they could do over here. But it's that similar thing, but it's like them doing stuff more around the internet. Not in the At Midnight sense, but in the, like, you take Not Safe and you do, and the Not Safe show and Problematic, and how they have these little like games and challenges and stuff like that. That I agree with you. so far problematic. They've aired 3 episodes. Islamophobia was the latest one. Cultural appropriation was the first one, and then what was it? It wasn't technophobia. It was um are we too and this is an interesting one with the how we are doing this, but are we too much into tech? Are we too tech dependent on things? Um and actually that one had Baratunde Thurston on there. And it was great seeing Baratunde on there. But the show is really interesting, and I do enjoy the show mainly for the fact of how the format is, where they talk about the show. Like for example, the cultural appropriation show. They they did or Moshe sat down with um I'm blanking on his name. He's a very early rapper. Like he's one of the first white rappers um to, be big. And he was talking about, the whole cultural appropriation thing. Like, does he feel like he is appropriating the culture by being a rapper and also being white and Jewish? And he's like, yes, but no, because yes, because I am a white man and I am Jewish, but no, because of the fact that of where I'm from. I'm from Brooklyn. I've lived these things out, and so I can not the Beastie Boys. It was before the Beastie. I think he was in there before the Beastie Boys. Um, and the and just talk about all these like all these different things, and it brings better understanding to me for a lot of these subjects. Like Islamophobia, I knew that was a thing, and like I'm not Islamophobic at all, but I mean I understand where people are coming from, although I feel it's ridiculous. I enjoy the show. That's what I'm getting at. I think this is something that's interesting. I do think you're right where Comedy Central can do Not Safe with Nikki Glazer.
It was Anthony Jeselnik. The Jeselnik Offensive is the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah. Like these shows seem safer than a sketch show because a lot, like you said, I mean, Key and Peele was the last sketch show that they had. And like, even though I feel like they had some good comedians on there to do sketch shows. I'm looking at, like Mind of Mencia was good. Um, uh, the Dimitri Martin one that they had was good. It was just like maybe might have been too early or something like that.
I mean, that's exactly what it is, though. Is that Comedy Central looks to comedians because that's who they've got relationships with. That's what their whole basis of their network is about, and they've had enough of them guest on different things there. And they say, pitch us a show. And so if your stuff leans more towards sketch comedy, then that's the kind of show you're going to pitch. If your stuff leans more towards conversational tone comedy, then that's where the panelist, the punditry is going to make sense. And that seems like where he would have landed. That's most of the stuff that I've seen him on. Is I haven't seen a lot of his stand-up, but I've seen him guest on things and be funny, having conversational tones with people. He's just someone who's naturally funny and has smart opinions that he can express well. And that's what you need to host this kind of show.
And Beats mentioning Hassan Minaj should get a bigger shot. And Hassan was on the Islamophobia episode and all that. And it's, I mean, yeah, it's one of those like, it's weird because with how things are right now with the world where, you got a president who likes to call out fake news and is calling out legitimate news sources when here I'm getting my news from comedians from Comedy Central and HBO. And it's like, are you really going to go after them? And, to a lesser extent, but a lot of people are getting it news from comedians. So from your late night stuff, whether it be the Daily Show or even At Midnight has been doing more news coverage. And it's like, are you how dumb can you be to go after people who are challenging your opinions over at CNN, Fox News, wherever, when you've got people literally making fun of you for the things you are saying and all this stuff, or telling you and getting threatened or petitions to get them fired that you're sucking Vladimir Putin's cock and stuff like that. It's like, come on, focus here, man. I don't know. All right. So my other nerding out that I have for you, or else view, um, is a show on Netflix called Girl Boss. Now this is based off of a book that is, or based off of a memoir that it's like really loosely like based on that book or whatever. But this stars Britt Robertson, and it's set in like 2006, I think, like the early 2000s, and it's about this girl who is working, or actually no, she's not really working, but she's trying to make it in San Francisco, and she discovers eBay and online selling and becoming an online retailer. And quite literally, hilarity ensues. I usually say it to quit describing the show, but no, it is just hilarious stuff is ensuing. And this, like for example, the first episode, she sells this vintage jacket, and this is when she realizes, hey, I think I could actually do this. Second episode, she injures herself, stretching because she's a shorter girl trying to reach the top shelf where she's trying to get this peanut butter, and pulls or gives herself a hernia and all that. So she gets a job working at the Academy of Arts over there in San Francisco, basically as a door person, just like, okay, you got your ID, okay, go go go. Working with Norm Macdonald, who is great in this show, and it is such a small part that he has, and she's only doing that to get insurance while she's also like expanding her line of clothes. The show, I had seen some advertisements for it on Netflix, but it fell relatively under my radar. It is so good. It is so funny. And it is one of those where you can just sit there and probably binge through all 13 episodes. I think I'm on 5, like 4 or 5. I'm still fairly early on in there. But yeah, I really enjoy this. I think it'll fit in here with our viewer base. Um and also it's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, so I mean, come on, it's an easy pick.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about it, and I've been seeing some chatter about it online. I didn't realize that the lead, Britt Robertson, was the girl from Tomorrowland, which is a movie
Yep.
that I really liked, and is another one that I wish would have done better in the theater. And she was very good in that.
Yeah. Britt Robertson, she was first came onto the scene really big with Life Unexpected on the CW. Then went to Tomorrowland and had done a few other movies before getting this role. And but yeah, I mean, and I will warn these sensitive ears that there's a lot of swearing, especially from Britt Robertson's character. I mean, it is just like some of the word. I'm like, all right, if there's the episode of South Park, I've only seen like 3 episodes of South Park. One of them was the cursed words episode where they did a counter of the times that they said fuck.
Yep.
This would blow that out of the water. And
Was it fuck or shit? I thought it was they were cutting down shit.
Yeah, it was shit. They wanted to do fuck, but I don't think
they weren't there yet. We weren't at the place where we could get away with that, but shit was good times.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like, you get the amount of curse words just goes out. It gets funny with how many times she ends up swearing. Where it's just like she runs out of gas. Oh fuck. She gets a ticket because I guess in San Francisco you're supposed to turn your wheels towards the curb. And she's like,
yeah, because if you slide down a hill, you want to make sure that your car is gonna like not
yeah,
go straight down the hill.
well, hold on, no, hold on, because I understand the logic, but she goes, "Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not even on a hill." Yeah,
You just gotta always plan for it.
yeah, but
Because
no, it's
we're Northern California. We may shake apart at any point in time. Where it started as a flat surface when we were there can turn into a hill very quickly.
I wouldn't know. I live in Michigan. Uh, but no, honestly, those are two picks that I got for you guys. In lieu of Corey, not having anything. Although I will say, American Gods episode 2 was really good. I was actually talking about it with a friend because I'm like, and I played the video that Beat posted on our Facebook, the Galactic Nightcast Facebook page of Neil Gaiman explaining American Gods. While I was at work, and I'm like, it is so good. Seeing Orlando, what is it, Orlando Jordan? What's the played Mr. Nancy on here?
I don't know because I haven't seen episode 2 yet.
Oh, well,
But,
okay. Orlando Jones.
Right, it is Orlando Jones.
Yeah, Orlando Jones as Mr. Nancy, so good, and that's right there at the beginning. But yeah, you know what? Fuck you. And I wish I had a fake Guardians of the Galaxy 2 spoiler, but I don't. But yeah, so that is the Else Views, and we will be right back. And we are back, and it is time for the Else Words. This is our main discussion topic point of the evening. And this is coming from IO9, and that is Kevin Feige thinks that eventually Marvel TV and movies will cross over. And in no duh news, but no,
but is it no duh news? Because the reason why he has to say this now is that we've gone back and forth. The original implication was that all the Marvel stuff from the cinematic universe and the TV universe was connected. And then slowly we started seeing that that wasn't exactly the case. Now, the first indicators were in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we would see movie things come and affect the show, but we wouldn't see the show actually affect the films. After the fact stuff of like, oh yeah, all those helicarriers that showed up at the end of Age of Ultron, that's because Coulson had them on ice and he had them ready for us and everything. We see that on the show, but we don't get any of that in the movie. Then I've talked before about the comparison of Marvel to when they got the Ultraverse, and Ultraverse got kind of taken over by Marvel's reject characters for a while. Yeah. But then when they went back to the Marvel Universe, none of the Ultraverse shit got mentioned at all in the regular Marvel books, because you're the lesser than. And for the TV stuff, that's kind of how it's been treated, as the lesser than. So we see the Avengers Tower in the background in Daredevil and a couple of the Netflix shows, but we're not hearing about the devil of Hell's Kitchen in the Marvel movies at all so far. And they've said less and less likely that that's going to happen. Is like, oh, you're probably not going to see the Defenders characters show up in the movies because it's hard to get them together to do these shows as it is. You know, these are not necessarily like huge movie stars, but they're certainly stars on the rise. And in between their Netflix obligations, they're probably going to have more stuff that they're going to get picked up on going forward. And so to bring those contracts in, and if you want to get another season of Daredevil, you may get that instead of seeing Daredevil show up in Avengers Infinity War. And there's been a breakdown in the relationship between the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Kevin Feige and the TV stuff, which has been more in the hands of Jeff Loeb and under the control of Ike Perlmutter, who is not happy that he doesn't have full control of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, he feels like Feige's gotten too much of that wrested away, and that's why we have things like where the Inhumans were at one point going to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now they've been regulated. While they'll still get a film in IMAX before it appears, it's now going to be a TV series instead. So is there still going to be an Inhumans movie as well, or is that something completely different, or is that cut off? Because Marvel Comics has been pushing the Inhumans a lot.
Yep.
but they couldn't quite make that work in the cinematic universe, and they probably just said, well, we don't really want them.
So I look at this in a um in a couple different ways. And that's, where can they tell the best stories? Like maybe with Daredevil, maybe, with like Daredevil, Iron Fist, um, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, the answer was TV, but not just TV, Netflix. And with Cap, Thor, Captain Marvel, the Guardians, that was in the movie theaters, on with movies. And so I think a lot of that is like, the Inhumans are like, well, where can we get the better stories? And I don't think um I think they went with the whole, it might be better off as a TV show. We could probably tell more stories. We've been building it up, in Agents of Shield, and we could get a crossover between the two, you know, going on there. Now,
Yeah, but that's part of I think the problem though is when you look at it, do you want to introduce your second or third, in this case, ABC series based off of what Agents of Shield is doing, which has been not great in the numbers consistently since the beginning, or would you rather it come directly from the Marvel movies? And unfortunately, they introduced elements of the Inhumans in the TV series, and I think that made it feel more like whatever happens with the Inhumans now has to happen from TV as opposed to the films. Yeah. And so they kind of put themselves into a box that they couldn't escape from.
Yeah. Now, Top Knot asks a question, which I'm going to answer the first part. The first part is no. He asks, are they going to do a Daredevil movie though, or is it going to matter to those of us who haven't watched that show? Basically, the answer is no, because they're not going to do a Daredevil movie. The rumors have always been, with Infinity War, with it being so big, that they would do that. This would be a good part to bring in at least the Marvel Netflix shows characters.
But I think what Top Knot is asking is, because of the fact that you're looking at a different medium to have to know these characters. If you see the movies and you go to the movies and you see these characters and stuff like that, and then you see the fucking films repeated ad nauseum on TBS and TNT all the time, because they've been playing the shit out of them, which is fine because I like to rewatch them all the time. That doesn't necessarily mean, FX, sorry. That doesn't actually mean that you're also necessarily subscribed to Netflix and familiar with that other portion of stories. So to say, here's Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and they all show up in Infinity War, for a good part of the audience, they may not know who they are. And how do you establish them when you've already got so many other characters up on the screen taking up real estate? And already we're having an expectation that if you're watching Avengers 3, that you must have seen all the other Marvel movies that lead into that. If you're watching Avengers, you might have watched the Captain America, the Iron Man, the Thor stuff to get into the Avengers in the first place. But then it also presumes, likely, but not 100%, that you recognize the Guardians of the Galaxy.
And I don't want to, say, like, dissuade, Top Knot's question or his follow-up, with basically with saying what you're saying. But at the same time, it's one of those things where if they were to, like, hypothetically bring in, the Defenders for Infinity War, and bring in the Inhumans, and maybe bring in, Colt, like, actually, I would stay away from the Agents of Shield, because they would need something.
Although, but that's kind of the whole point too, is that Coulson is the one entry point that makes sense from the TV stuff. He's the one guy who 100% has been established in the films already. And so to not be able to use him out of everybody else is kind of a kick in the nads but they would know him, and it's been this constant thing of like, when are they gonna fucking tell Tony and Pepper that Coulson's alive?
But here's honestly though the workaround around it. The Sokovia Accords, something that happened because of one of the movies, but had more effect. It seems like at least a little bit in the other movies, because what you do is it's the Superhero Registration Act from the comic books. So this is how they know, because Maria Hill and Nick Fury, they have a database on all these people. That's how Tony Stark found out about a little kid over in Queens that was building himself a suit and was going around swinging from building to building like his fucking Tarzan, and then found out that his aunt, who is way too young, sorry, side note, and that he has the hots for, exists, sort of deal. I could see it being possible. It wouldn't be a big plot point. If it ever were to be brought in, it would not be a big plot point, because of the fact, like Top Knot is saying, there are people who only watch the movies and don't watch the shows. Or maybe they only watch the Daredevil Netflix show, but they don't watch Luke Cage or Jessica Jones or Iron Fist or whatever. But at that same time, it would be like it would be an Easter egg, like seeing Stan Lee in any fucking Marvel movie that's
right.
out
And but as an Easter egg, is that going to satisfy the fans? It's the lip service of the DC universe is different in the films versus the DC universe in the TV series, but it's a multiverse thing, so absolutely they could cross over. It'll never fucking happen. It will never happen. But the idea is like, but we could, and the promise is there that it absolutely. So you just have to create this idea of well, they both exist. And if we did a flash of fucking 19 worlds, because he's already gone to so many other fucking Earths in the show, then certainly we could do this, but we never fucking will. And the idea of the TV stuff affecting the movies is that sure, we could have the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because S.H.I.E.L.D. has been a big part of multiple films so far. Could have them show up, should have them show up, but then we also have to take into account that the TV actors would then have to elevate to a level to match the gravitas of the actors in the movies. And we are talking about some Oscar-winning actors in these movies compared to not really Emmy-winning actors in the show.
Yeah. And I think we're getting at a point, and I don't want this to sound like I'm picking on Top Knot, but he's asking, like, he's not asking for an exposition dump, but at least some information on who these people are. And I get that. And that's probably one of the reasons why it would be so hard to do a crossover, a big crossover between the movies and the TV.
I can tell you exactly what they need to do. I can tell you exactly what they need to do. They need to approach it from a let's blow the budget and do a 90-minute made for TV, put out an ABC movie where they have one or two of the Avengers, the actual Avengers, show up and have a team up with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to establish a reconnection between those characters. Because people who would go see the movies would say, well, fuck yeah, I'm watching this show because goddamn Captain America shows up in it. And it's not Sif, but it's not some other random fucking Thor character. It's the goddamn Avengers themselves. It could even be Hawkeye and Vision or something. Just fucking make that shit happen so that we get some establishment of the TV universe connecting to the film universe, and then it puts it into the continuity again, and it opens up the door of them showing up in the movie next. And if they say, oh, well, I didn't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., all you have to do is watch this 90-minute movie. You can get it on DVD. You can stream it on ABC's fucking streaming channel. You can watch it on Netflix. It's available to you, but you have to get that out there soon.
Yeah.
Agent Carter got to be on her TV series and still show up in the films. But in the films, they don't reference the TV series. It's just kind of like it's bonus stuff, but they still let her exist in the movies at the same time. So we had that back and forth. If the series had lasted longer, we might have seen some stuff of like Agent 13 when she was young, something that could have made the character feel more connected between the two. And she was our connection to Shield at that point, in the future sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's doable. It's just, how do you do it in such a time frame when you've already got so much that you want to bring up on screen? And if we're talking about Avengers 3 and 4, which is kind of what we're assuming, is we have to establish a relationship between the Guardians and the Avengers already. Yeah. And so to say, and then here's this third team, and then here's the Shield agents that you might not have met. It's a lot to put into what is, two blockbuster films, but that's just so much to do. And that's hard to write in, and a believability and a buy-in from the audience sense. I would love it. I absolutely love it, because that, to me, the interconnected universe is why I like Marvel Comics. It's why I like DC Comics. It's all these characters exist in the same world, and then they can cross over. But I'm also sick as shit of the always having to cross over, and I can't just buy one book and enjoy it for itself. I have to read fucking Secret Empire and all of its spinoffs to know what's going on with the character that I want to actually collect. I don't want to see the films do that, but they kind of already have, because it's not like there's just a trilogy of Iron Man, and it's not like there's just a trilogy of Captain America. There are 20 fucking Marvel films already, and it's just going to keep going from there. And unlike Star Wars, which I think once it gets past its trilogy and these interstitial movies that are happening right now, is eventually it's going to start doing new stories with new characters. Marvel is certainly introducing new characters into their overall universe, but they're still having those characters intersect by way of power gems with the rest of the Marvel characters. So it's like, well, if I'm just into Doctor Strange, can I just watch Doctor Strange? Well, today, mostly, but a year from now, no. If I just like the heist film aspect of Ant-Man, can I just watch Ant-Man and Wasp? Well, not really, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some references to what happened in Civil War in the next Ant-Man, because he's kind of on the fucking run, and you're going to have to have seen that. It's a huge thing. It's a huge undertaking, and I appreciate it, because I am the geek fan who loves that.
Yeah.
But that is a huge thing to ask of the non-geek, super geek fan who doesn't watch all the shows at the same time.
And that's where, like I'm seeing in the chat, B and Top Knot, going back and forth on this stuff a little bit, and where I get the whole, Beat brought up the point of, well, Black Panther's introduction didn't pose a huge drawback in Avengers 2. And then Top Knot goes, well, nope, there's a hint that his story would be expanded on at a later time. And I think that's going to have to be part of it, is if they were to introduce anyone, whether it be, Phil Coulson, the Guardians, they would probably have to do some expanding on, like how do they get brought in, because I can see how they bring in any of these groups besides the Guardians. Like the Guardians, I could see if they had a scene that set them up of like, okay, Drax gets some word that Thanos is here. All right, we're going here because I must kill Thanos. And Gamora, same thing with Gamora and
that's just it. They introduced Drax and Gamora's relationships to Thanos in the very first Guardians film. We got more of Thanos in Guardians than we have in any other movie so far. So that does kind of give you the reasoning. And we know Thanos has had hands in the Avengers plots since the end of the first Avengers movie. And that works.
But here's I guess here's the part I'm getting at with why I think we could still see this. Look at Civil War. How did we get Spider-Man? How did we get Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to begin with? Because Tony Stark heard of a kid.
Which then says, well, then why would Tony Stark, of all people who hacks the shit out of Shield's files, not know about all of the Agents of Shield's characters, including the fact that Coulson's alive?
Maybe he's holding on to it for a time he needs it.
I'm sure when the moment comes when Coulson shows up on the screen, that Tony's going to be like, "Yeah, I knew that," because he's always got to be the smartest man in the room, and he likes to one up Cap as much as he possibly can. But the same reaction is then, well, then it kind of defeats some of what we want to see from that happening. And what does Coulson and the team bring to it at that point? What do all these characters bring that we don't already have? When you look at the power sets alone of the Defenders, like it's, yeah, in some ways they're more powerful than a couple of the Avengers, sure, but they don't have the experience. They don't have the cool gadgets and the fucking paychecks that go along with it. So what do they bring to the movie that we're missing?
Yeah.
And then they have to go back to their TV universe and exist there again and not be like, oh shit, you know what? I got some hefty stuff going on over here where I could really use a little bit more of a powerhouse to join up with me. Can I borrow one of you Avengers? No, you're not taking my calls right now? Okay, fuck you.
And so I think we're getting to more of why it won't happen.
Right. And we haven't even taken into account some of the new shows that are still coming out, like Runaways and Cloak and Dagger, and how tied in are they to these other shows, being on completely different networks yet again? Do they get to reference Avengers or Defenders or Shield or any of that stuff? Or is that flavoring that they're going to leave out of these? I've always been kind of a too much happens in New York for my fucking tastes in the Marvel Universe. It's like you can't have that many superheroes hanging out in New York because literally they're going to be bumping into each other all the fucking time. But that is what the universe has always been established as. I like the idea of there are characters that exist in this world that are obviously, if superheroes are part of the fucking palette, then there are superheroes that are going to exist that aren't Avengers, that aren't Defenders, that aren't hanging out with Doctor Strange at his Sanctum Sanctorum and all these things. But then you go and you ruin that by saying, well, for the next couple of years, all the new superheroes that come out, it's because of the fucking Terrigen Mists. So here's our cool Miss Marvel character, and here's our Kid Kaiju, and here's Moon Girl, and it all ties into the Inhumans. For some reason, we can't give them their own actual identities. And then we're going to team up time-displaced Cyclops with Vision's daughter and Amadeus Cho Hulk and all these things that, again, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you just see it. It's how much of this is just kind of forced because you have another team name that you want to use and you need to fill up that book with characters. That's why I like books like The Runaways. That's why I like things where they get to do their own stuff. Even a legacy book like Young Avengers was still, these were kids who kind of met and knew each other and gathered on their own, but they weren't gathered by the other people. It was something that they decided to do. And it feels a little bit more intimate and almost more realistic than that.
And I think Top Knot's got a pretty interesting question here that we might have to, that we probably should answer. Are they going to decide that there's an end to the story, or are they just going to let it expand and infatuate like the comics do? I mean, because it's always turned out well for comics, is his statement on that. I would honestly, like, yes, the world will exist to where, yes, there will be a backstory. Because it's always seemed easy for me. And fuck you, Beatmaster. I did get the 21 or 2001 reference. Sorry, this is quickly falling out of hand. But where I know, and a lot of people who read comic books understand, there's 75, 80 years of history when it comes to the big two, when it comes to Marvel or DC. Looking at, we just had Free Comic Book Day. The backup story for their Secret Wars Free Comic Book Day was the amazing, or what was it? Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, written by Chip Zdarsky, and they introduced a new trickster. Now I missed that part. I didn't get to that part, but or not trickster, trapster. And there's a part there where like, wait, like, is it trapster? Like you take off the E and all that stuff, and like you're the new hipster trapster sort of thing. And it's one of those things like you can continue on while acknowledging history, but not having to wrap up anything. I think Avengers 3 and 4 is going to be that. It's going to end part 1, like book 1 of this, and then we're going to start book 2, where we might get other characters that wouldn't necessarily be the prime Avengers. This is where we get into like where we get to some of these characters where like they were an Avenger. It's like, hells yeah, they were an Avenger.
Well, I mean, so that what you're describing in a comic book sense works or has worked. And there's a lot of arguments against that, because look at how many times DC has rebooted their universe to explain how Superman can still be 30 years old 80 years later. You can't do that to the same degree in movies without replacing actors, because some of these people are in their 50s. And the other question about that then is, how interested am I in a Marvel universe where I don't have Robert Downey Jr. and Tony Stark, and when I don't have Chris Evans and Captain America? How interested do I remain? And does the Avengers, just a name, get to go on, or are the Avengers the characters that we've kind of seen in that team, and then the Doctor Strange and the Captain Marvel and these other characters that they're going to be introducing, do they have to form some other group? That's kind of the question. Is at some point, comics, we've developed the ability to accept that it's an ongoing drama that never ends, like a daytime soap opera. But even on daytime soap operas, your Robert Scorpios and your Anna and Duke and Felicia and Frisco and all those characters have to leave because the actors can't play them anymore realistically, or we've moved on and we've developed, other things have come in and taken over, and it's the universe that exists, but the characters and the people come and go.
Yeah.
But when the characters and the people are so inherent to the joy that we get from watching these movies, is that it is like there's a swelling of it. We can't just like say at some point, well, so everybody moves to another Earth, and on that Earth we get a new Tony Stark, and we get a new Steve Rogers, and we get a new that doesn't quite have the same thing. So in Top Knot's statement, I kind of do think in many ways they talk about Avengers 4 being kind of a final note for the characters that they've existed. It's just then, but we already know that there's so much more that's still going to happen. And if the stuff with Black Panther happens post this, and we know that Winter Soldier is hanging out with Black Panther, then we get more Winter Soldier, but then we don't get a closure on Winter Soldier and Cap if Cap's gone. And there's characters that I haven't spent enough time with. I want way more Falcon than I've been given, but I want Falcon and Cap. I love that pairing, and I want to see that continue. And so, yeah, fucking re-up Chris Evans' contract, guys. But it is a point of like, but how far can they go? And how far can they keep going? Comics and films can't play by the same rules. Cartoons can. But live action films, it's something else. And I'm not prepared, as much as I've accepted Don Cheadle replacing Terrence, whatever his name is, unfortunately. Terrence Howard as War Machine in the first one. I can live with that because he wasn't even a primary character in that one. but I'm not prepared to see Tony Stark be played by somebody else. I'm not
and
prepared to see Thor be played by somebody else.
I think that's, bear with me on this. I think that's where we're going to have to get to do a clever comic book trope. We are in the middle of it with quite a few of the characters right now. Tony Stark is dead in the comics. Well, dead. I'm using air quotes in there because he's like in this vegetative state, but is now an AI sort of thing where we now have Ironheart. You look at Captain America, Steve Rogers, just 2-3 years ago, he was an old man because he sacrificed the super soldier serum that kept him young and fit and looking like the buff Chris Evans is now, and not the 100 and some odd year old man that he would be from being born and fought in World War II. You go of one of two ways. Either you kill off the character, like you kill to where the actor has that wrap up because like Robert Downey Jr. is in his 50s and all that, and then you go, you bring in a legacy character. So you bring in a James Rhodes as Iron Man, or like the Patriots, or I'm trying to think of or like Nomad or whoever to take over Captain America for a little bit, because there have been other people other than Falcon and Bucky to be Captain America. And then, oh hey, we found Cap again, and it's not Chris Evans. And yes, there will be outlet backlash and all that stuff, but I look at this as a wrestling fan. You can't have wrestlers wrestling all the time, even though they're older, because otherwise you're going to get people like Big Bad Vader who just want to die in the ring. It seems like,
But now here's one I'm going to point out. It was just a few weeks ago that we had the story where Marvel determined that a lot of these legacy characters and a lot of the changes from the original characters that people already loved to these other new versions of those characters, they felt was being looked at as part of the reason why their numbers are struggling right now, and they're trying to get back to their classics again. I love legacy characters when the legacy characters actually get to perform on their legacy, but I also like new characters a little bit more because new characters get to be their own thing. They're never considered the B team. They're never considered the also-rans. They're never considered the runner-up. And that's really conceptually what a problem is going to be for fans. Is I don't want Tony Stark's brother. I don't want Steve Rogers' clone. I want the people who, that's my Cap, that's my Han Solo. That to me is going to be something that can backfire very quickly. And you're much better off, and I'm glad that Marvel is doing this, you're much better off introducing other characters and giving them their own franchises, like the Black Panther and Captain Marvel, than introducing the new Cap. I don't want a new Cap. I mean, not just because Cap is my favorite character in the Marvel universe, but because I don't want Falcon to be Cap. I want Falcon to be Falcon because I think Falcon is himself super fucking cool and one of my favorite characters.
I look at this as one of two ways. I look at this as either it's going to have to be sort of something like My Way, where we bring in legacy characters for a little bit and then do a soft reboot with new actors playing Captain America and Iron Man and all these other guys, because Robert Downey Jr. is in a wheelchair and he's up for the role of Professor Xavier. Or we do the Amazing Spider-Man thing where after 3 years we're like, okay, and that's a wrap, folks, and we do new casting for these people 3-4 years later, where it could be maybe 10-15 years later if we do the legacy stuff right. And then we're just telling the same stories. That's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, is they look at the actors and like, oh, it's the actor who makes the character. I'm like, for the movies, yes, but if you can find someone out there who can do just as good of a performance or bring something different to the character, um then you can get more stuff out of this. Because also keep in mind, there is 80 years of material that they can pull from. They have barely scratched the surface of stories that they could pull from the comics.
Yeah, but
And
if you look at the comics, they're repeating stories there.
well, true, but still. So even then, with the repeats, you would probably say what, 60 years of stories there.
And not
60.
all those stories were gold either. You know, I don't necessarily think I ever need to see Werewolf Captain America happen in the films. I don't think I need to see Tony Stark get killed and then come back as a teenager in the films. I don't think I need to see Thor get replaced by Beta Ray. No, fuck yeah, I do. Yeah, I'll watch a Beta Ray Bill film. Fuck yeah, I will.
Oh hell yeah! But the point I'm making with this though is,
but Thor
there
Frog
is only in a Guardians movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The point I am making with this is, you can't, like they've told the Civil War story. They've told the origins of and the culmination of the Avengers story. They've told all these stories that have happened in comic books.
I ain't told the goddamn Black Widow story.
True, but hashtag feminism, insert another hashtag here, like I'm John Oliver. And it's one of those things, like, when they're taking a risk, and I'm going to call it a risk, and I am a member of the Carol Corps, so sit down, shut up for a second. By going with Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, a character who has only been Captain Marvel for like 5 years, that to me is more riskier than doing Captain America or doing any of these other things, and all that. Even doing Deadpool, because they have more things that you could pull from. With this, it's getting more into Hellboy territory, where I wouldn't be surprised if they had, if we see news of Kelly Sue DeConnick ghost wrote some of the stories, because of the fact that she's the one who really helped this character explode and become the phenomenon that she is.
Well, but you're discounting how much of Carol was written before she was Captain Marvel.
Not really, because I mean, yes, you could pull some stuff from that, but a lot of that stuff is tied in with franchises that are in other wheelhouses.
Well, not necessarily, because Miss Marvel, the original character, was tied into Marvel, which is not part of any other franchise, and which they're probably going to use to establish some of her origin in this. Now, when you get to when she becomes binary, you can do the binary stuff without involving the X-Men. And everything else that she did post that was still Avengers related, as Miss Marvel, as Warbird. There's still a lot of things that you can utilize her for, and you can put her into Thunderbolts. You can involve a lot of that stuff. It's just the question of, are these things going to exist in a way that is going to be a suitable replacement for what people already have and expect from their Avengers movies? Or are they going to be the new Avengers, which is a perfectly reasonable title to kick it over from the comics to the films. But I wonder if people are going to be as accepting of that, not because of gender, not because of race, but because we love our Avengers. We absolutely love our Avengers. We love our Tony Stark. We love our Steve Cap. We love all these characters already. Losing them is going to be hard. It's like losing your cat. My cat is 19 years old. I know he's not going to be around forever. And I know that it's important for me to be prepared, one, for him to go, but two, to find love again with my next cat.
I'm sorry, but
I can handle, but it's the truth. It's the reality. And so in the way of the Avengers, it's like, okay, yeah, the Avengers themselves are probably going to go at some point, whenever that is. If it's not in Avengers 4, we know it's going to happen eventually. How quickly will I be ready to love the next Avengers? It's the same thing we were talking about with the Game of Thrones spinoffs. It's like, once I'm done with Game of Thrones, am I then ready to jump into the next Game of Thrones spinoff, or do I need to back away for a while?
Yeah. This is something that is interesting because you reminded me of a point. You're talking to a person who his first comic book character that he loved was Spider-Man. I had to watch them reboots, turn around, and I said it as a Spider-Man fan. They rebooted Amazing Spider-Man way too soon. I got burned. And yeah, I loved every single Spider-Man movie that has come out so far. You know, and I'm pretty sure I will love Homecoming. But I look at all this stuff and I go, it seems way too quick. This is why I think I pitched the bring in a legacy character, bring in you know, bring in an Ironheart to take over for Iron Man for a little while before we secretly recast him, but then bring in new Iron Man, hey, look, it's Tony Stark, and not address it or whatever. But I don't know. I don't.
When we look at examples like that, I mean, what you're talking about with Spider-Man is itself part of the problem, because they did the Sam Raimi ones, and then very quickly after they rebooted and they started doing the Amazing Spider-Man series, and then after the second one of that, they realized that wasn't working either. I think the only saving grace for what they're doing right now is the fact that they have the tie into the Marvel Universe. They established him with a connection to them with Captain America: Civil War, and involving Tony as Iron Man in the new Spider-Man movie. I think that is something that was very well thought out and planned and paid for, and is going to give them a return that they would not otherwise get if they were just going to give us a third try at Spider-Man. Without that, I think people would be not anxious to go see that movie again. The other way of looking at it is what the X-Men have done, which is they time hopped and they went backwards and they put younger actors in the role by going back in time. But as you and I have watched these other films where they've done that, and then they're making the jump forward every 10 years to the next decade of it, our reactions have not been great. My reactions to those films have not been great at all. The last two X-Men movies to me have been almost unwatchable, and it's not because the actors aren't good, and it's not because I have such a huge problem with them replacing characters, but just the delivery of, like, we fucked up the X-Men so much, and even going back in time to correct everything, we still can't make any goddamn sense out of it. It plays off as a stupid fucking idea, and this is something that, I mean, in the comic books, they do all the goddamn time. Because in comic books, there's a different buy-in than there is in movies. And so what Marvel has been good about is taking the base core ideas and the best parts of the comics and then making something that still feels real and grounded in the films. And I'm sure that Feige and the team that are working on these movies have plans in place for this. They know he himself is going to hit his end game with, like, how much he's going to be working on these Marvel movies, because at some point he's going to want to retire, because I'm sure he's super fucking rich and can buy Australia. Kick down, I like Australia. Invite me over sometime. I'll watch all your goddamn movies with you. I just know that, yes, there's probably something in place to where they're going to get to. We know the cash cow has done all it can do for us, and here's where we close it and we give over the keys to somebody else and say, now you make your Marvel universe. When we're going to get there, because as we go along, we keep establishing new things that are interesting, but those new things still kind of hold hands with the part that we love that was our entry point in. It's all tied to Tony Stark from the very beginning, and Samuel Jackson is Nick Fury and all these things. And so it's going to be hard when those portions of it that were the entire foundation for this beautiful thing that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when that kind of breaks down. It's going to be hard to accept that and still feel the same joy when I go into these movies. Because right now I go into these things and I'm like, Ant-Man, cool, sure. oh my God, but look at how Ant-Man interacts with everything else. Look how Ant-Man has ties into Shield and what happened to Shield and how it ties into these other things. Like, that's even cooler. And Doctor Strange, cool. And oh, what's that? Doctor Strange, there's a fucking power gem here? Of course there is, because the power gems are what this whole fucking thing's about right now. But that's going to disappear because we're going to fight Thanos. We're going to deal with the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Gems. So what is then the tying factor, and what's going to tie the audience to these other characters at that point? Is it just going to be because, well, I saw Black Panther and I thought he was neat, and so I'll keep watching Black Panther, even though there's not this other portion of it that it all goes into again? That's a big question. That's a big risk to kind of like look to pay off. On the other hand, I don't know that I'll ever get sick of seeing the Guardians of the Galaxy crew and all the stuff they're doing. And I don't know that I'll ever get sick of seeing the Marvel films as they are established right now, because they are so consistently good. They're not always great, but they are always good. They are always enjoyable at this point. So I'm not trying to downplay what they're doing and where they're going to go, because at this point I can't not have faith in them. But it begs a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And that's why it's up to smarter people than me.
Mm-hmm. Same here. I like I said in the chat, and this is, I hate to say this, but I think this is the most people we've had live watching us, and it feels weird. It honestly feels weird that there's, especially people we know, like, I think there's only like 2 people that I might not know. And even then I could know them. Like, oh, hey, sorry, I feel like an asshole now.
I feel like an asshole all the time with all the people I know.
Yeah, true. I mean, same here. But it's one of these things, like, I think this might be where we end, because all I'm going to say would probably be repeating stuff I've already said, and I hate repeating myself. Sorry. So I leave this to you guys listening at home, and what do you think should happen with the Marvel universe, after Avengers 4? Once this is all done, should they do recasting? Should they do, just bring in different characters? Let us know. You can let us know by contacting us by our email at mail@elsenerds.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. We will probably play that at the end of the show.
In both cases, you should let us know if you're okay with having your email read or your voicemail played on the air. We don't often think of that ahead of time, and I want to make sure that you're cool with it before we go and put you up. But we'd love to get this back on. To
use the whole Marvel Comics thing, please put "okay to print" in the subject line.
Yeah.
You can find all of our subscription options and links over at gncast.com/subscribe. And you can find our Facebook page, facebook.com/galacticnetcasts. You can follow the show and the network on Twitter at ElseNerds and at galacticnetcasts. You could follow the producers of the show. Beatmaster is on Twitter at Beatmaster80. And Evan is at Mr_Fusion. I am at that Gregor. Corey, where can they find you? And also watching us right now, Levi Krause's work.
Let's see. So I help publish online at don'taskcomics.com, which is funny because it's also kind of a shared universe and has been going on for about 20 or so years. And we have a different plan, which is we only draw and put out comics once every fucking blue moon. So that makes it always feel fresh. But you can check out the comics that I've either helped write, like Balyar, or all the stuff that Levi has done, like Spells, Levi's World, Strobe, and Shock, and so on, at don'taskcomics.com. And we appreciate you checking us out.
And the final thing to be said is this has been a Don't Tell Glenn production, and we will see you guys next week.
Or else.
We will spoil Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
God damn it, please don't.
All right. That was actually, I mean, honestly, this is weird because it's like I'm seeing all these things like this is what it's like to talk to people who aren't on screen. Oh my gosh. But I like that. I like that discussion topic. That discussion thing. It was great.
That was
It was.
that was probably the ultimate discussion topic for ElseNerds. And thank you everybody in the chat, especially Top Knot. Hi, Robin.
Yeah.
For egging us through that and for bringing up some great points along the way. And from Growly Bear and Brandon earlier, from making jokes that we couldn't help but repeat on the air. And just in general, god damn, thank you guys for hanging out with us. This is insane. This is not usually what this show gets to do, and we really appreciate it.
Definitely. I mean, the only thing I could say is to do wait, who apparently Corey, you know Top Knot?
I know everybody, man.
Oh, this is
I'm
true.
quite popular. I keep trying to tell you guys that.
I mean, you are the watcher. I mean, you are Uatu the watcher.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, this is, gosh, it's cool to see, and I mean, I feel like this went really good, and I didn't realize I was saying the number that fast. It became so quick, you know, just like second nature, to where
I do that too. I had to catch myself the other day on pot to slow down and repeat it as well. You just get in the habit. You just get in the habit of saying it.
You have a demand by Levi. More promotion, gentlemen. Corey, use that Twitter.
Corey needs to remember to post the comics. Last Thursday, I missed posting Levi's World. Work has just been insane the last couple of weeks, so I need to.
Trust me, dude. As the I officially, like, to the point of, if I don't see the raise on my check, I will call my boss and be like, "Where's my money?" But like, dealing with that, it's just so. I will say other things when I am not live on air, but it is so fun. He said super sarcastically. And I'm cool with Beat and Evan. If you want to jump on, we can just do a little post-show thing live. I don't care. I mean, there's part of me that thinks Beat fell asleep because it's 12 a.m. East Coast, which means it's what, sunrise over where Beat's at.
There's an outside?
Yeah, it's that place that I go to when I have to get in my car to go to work.
It's just your transitional tube with an atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that another comic book reality? Oh. It was so great I didn't notice what time it is. It's 6 a.m.
Oh god, dude. That's where I was looking. I'm like, it's 12. When did we start? And I was about to put it in the chat. I'm like, so how long have we been going? What's the runtime here?
Well, we did start really late. We were still gathering stories up until.
No, we had technical difficulties.
Yeah.
We're totally professional.
Technically, I'm difficult to work with.
See you, Nate.
Thanks, Chad.
Yes, I guess people even.
Yeah, I mean, for Nate and Brandon, I know that they're on East Coast time as well, and Growly Bear, it's probably daytime for him.
Well, if he's on his work account, I mean, yeah, or when he was on his work account, so yeah. God, that's weird. It's so weird. So at work, I describe the podcast stuff to my coworkers, and I describe honestly how a lot of my best friends I've never met face to face. Like a lot of, and it's weird. It's like, it's too, like, you know, like I honestly feel like you guys are my best friends, and you know, and the people in chat are, you know, good friends, because like you see this unfiltered, which not say I put a filter on with other people, look at me with how I talk and all this stuff, and you know how I nerd out, because we all nerd out in very similar ways.
Right. Oh, while you guys were doing the show, I saw on Facebook. I'm not a fan of Psych, but I saw that coming. I think it's this December. Is going to be a holiday themed Psych TV movie.
Holy shit!
Wait, okay. I don't know if it was because I had seen Psych on Ion this weekend, but this is like the 5th time I've mentioned, or it was mentioned. Psych was mentioned. I mentioned it today at work, mainly because I was helping them do the about doing the podcast, and how if you look there, every episode in my background there is a spot the pineapple. It's a little bit of the spot the pineapple because I have the Psych pineapple back where is it? In front of the Harley Quinn long box and all that. So it's one of those things like you can.
Oh yeah. I see it back there now.
So that's where I'm saying, but everyone watching in chat, good night, good day, good morning, all that stuff. Growly Bear, thanks for the follow on Twitter. I saw that. That was awesome. But yeah, Beat, you should probably take us down before we get taken down.
and Robin, when the opportunity presents itself and we have more to say about it, we absolutely will cover Dark Tower for you.
Yes.
Or since I know that Brandon and Nate are big fans, I'm sure they're going to have some stuff to say about Dark Tower over on their network at inkgeekstudios.com. Possibly on Sonic and Sabers, although I'm not sure if that's going to be the place where it lands. But I can definitely expect that they're going to have some things to put out there about that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dan and Jack over at Wii Studios have some stuff to say about it too, because Jack has been reading the books recently. And yes, you have an open invitation when we do talk about Dark Tower to come on the show.
Yes.
Take care, everybody. Oh,
yeah.
Go on.
Bye, guys. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.